Welcome everybody to my next update video on my action RPG. I've been working on this game for 7 weeks now. Next week is gonna be exactly 2 months since I started this project and 3 weeks since my last video. So I wanna go over real quick the main functionality and the main features that I added in these 3 weeks, starting with the main menu. Of course, before I didn't have any main menu or any menu UI at all for the game. So I added this very simple menu. It shows you a list of the characters that you have and a slight description of the character. So right now you can delete characters. There's a small delay before deleting a character. You don't want to delete a character by accident, of course. So I added this little feature. You can create new characters and you can make them hardcore. Hardcore, of course, is a staple in many RPG games. Hardcore characters cannot revive. Once they die, you cannot play with them anymore. So you can create characters in either normal or hardcore. Of course, you can always visit them in the graveyard. You can have a collection of all the characters that ever died on hardcore here. But anyways, there's not really much to show on the main menu other than this. So let's get into the game and let's see all the other features, including the skill system and the dungeon generator that I've added in these 3 weeks. Okay, so here we are in the game. So let's go over the things that I improved before going into the random dungeon. The hub, this of course is like the town or the main place where you have the NPCs and their stash. Also the entrance to the dungeon. Okay, the first thing that I made was a minimap. As you can see, you have a small minimap on the corner that shows the layout of the dungeon you are currently in. You can also maximize it. You know, this is a staple in, I think, all of the action RPGs that I played. You know, you need a map to guide you where you are, especially when the dungeons, you know, if they get very big and randomized. Obviously, you need a map. Also to mark special things like NPC, etc. I'm gonna have small icons on the minimap to indicate that. You can toggle it. Okay, so the second thing that I improved was the skill system. The last time, I think I only showed a couple of skills like projectiles, like this one, the fireball, and also a couple of sword slashes, etc. But now I made the other different types of skills that I wanted to have. The first one was a minion skill. This skill summons skeletons. You can only have 3 at a time. You just try to summon more. It kills the last one. They follow you. They have a very simple pathfinding. But you know, it works for what they do. They shoot enemies. They can also change targets. And anything that comes nearby that is aggressive, they aggro it. Also, they teleport to you when you get too far. You know, because the dungeon is gonna be random and it's gonna have a lot of things inside. You often are gonna miss your minions. They're gonna be stuck or something. So I made it so that they teleport to you when they get too far. So that's the first type of skill that I made, the minions. The second one was an area of effect or a targeted skill for the ground. So this meteor, you can have it target an area to have an effect. Of course, this is only a meteor, but you know, it can be any area of effect. So now I have the functionality to add any targeted area. Of course, you cannot shoot behind walls like here, and I was gonna shoot at the corner. So if there's a wall here, you cannot shoot at enemies that are behind, like this pillar. You know, it's gonna shoot here on the corner. So this is another type of skill that I implemented to be able to add more in the future. So now I have a projectile, an area of effect, a minion skill. Also, I have an aura, which is like a toggle skill or a buff, an area of effect buff that affects all allies and yourself. So when you turn this on, you know, you get an effect that gives you some buff. Right now, this is not really working as intended because I need a way to save the effects that the aura has. So when you can log back in, you have all the auras turned on by default. Also, this affects the allies. You know, it has an area of effect. So when they get close, they get the bonuses. So this is gonna be good for, you know, summoners that want to have a lot of a lot of friends to help. So that's the next skill type. And the last skill type that I added was channel skills. So skills that you have to hold the button in order to use. Like this. You can hold it and it's gonna be draining your mana. You know, whatever the skill is, it can be any channel skill. This one is like a whirlwind, you know, that hits enemies around every second. I think that's all of the skill types that I have to show. Let's go to the other character and check the dungeon, which is the next part that I made. Okay, so here I am with my second character. I'm just gonna show you a little bit about the dungeon, the way I made it, the way I want it to work in the future, because right now it's not finished, it's lacking a lot of things, and I'm just gonna show you how it works. So right now it's just a walker, a random walker that starts in the center and expands outwards. It's pretty random, which is one of the reasons why I wanna rework it or improve it in the future. Sometimes it generates dungeons that are too small or dungeons that are too big. Right now it's serviceable for just testing the game right now. As you can see, you can have random enemies throughout the dungeon. They can spawn in packs. So right now this is just a level 1 dungeon, so there's not many monsters, but you're gonna have rooms filled with monsters in the future. You have random encounters like this chest. Right now I only have 1 encounter, 3 enemies, and a few decorations. But of course, as you can see, the more I start adding these things, the more enemies, the more encounters, the more decorations, the dungeon is gonna get exponentially better, because you know there's gonna be a lot of randomness. You're gonna find a lot of different enemies with different rarities. Right now they are just regular enemies. You can have like mini boss enemies with different modifiers. Different encounters. Instead of chests, you can have like small bosses or things that summon more enemies around, etc. At least that's the idea. Although I don't know if this walker is gonna be able to fulfill that, because right now, this dungeon is pretty big, I believe, for a level 1 dungeon. Sometimes it generates like a very small one with like 3 enemies, so you know it's not really normalizing the amount of things that spawn inside. I may need to rewrite all the dungeon code to generate a more cohesive dungeon. You know, if somebody has a better idea on how to do this, or like a tutorial that I should follow. I tried following a lot of random dungeon generators, but they all either use a walker similar to this, or it was too like they had a lot of corridors and big rooms, which I don't know if I like. I like more of this style, like smaller to medium-sized rooms spawning. But my ultimate goal is to make a dungeon that is a little more controllable. Something that, for example, you can draw some points on the tile set and let the dungeon generator create a shape around that. I don't know if that's possible, but I'm gonna try. For now, I'm gonna leave it like this. What else? Of course, you can open a portal anytime when inside the dungeon. Right now, the main gameplay loop of the game is not really working, because, and this is the biggest problem that I have right now, the dungeon is not safe. So every time you exit and enter the dungeon is generated again. So if I exit here and I enter back again, the dungeon is gonna be generated again. So you only have one chance to enter, pick the loot or whatever. So if you die inside, you're gonna go back to the hub, and you're not gonna be able to pick the loot that you had inside or kill the boss. So that's my first issue that I'm gonna work on, a way to save the dungeon, so you can have like a couple of tries before the dungeon portal disappears. You can also, in the future, I'm gonna add a system to modify the dungeon, so add more difficulty modifiers to the dungeon to make it not only more random, but more challenging in the future. Drop better loot. I don't know what else to say about the dungeon. I think that was it. The itemization system, I don't think I changed at all. I only changed the UI a little bit, but I think I kept most of the things on the items the same as the last time. I made a couple of changes, like when you don't have attributes to equip items, you cannot use them anymore. So I have to change that, the ability to use the items. However, all the stats are updated correctly. When you, like, if I unequip these gloves that's giving me agility, and I'm gonna be able to equip this bow that requires 15 agility, it actually removes the stats from the bow if it's not possible to use, but you can still use these skills. So that's another thing that I have to fix. Not that difficult to fix, but there's a lot of little bugs here and there that need to be refined. For the next update, I'm planning on finishing the dungeon, making it so that you have multiple tries, having an actual death that a death animation that you die and respawn at the hub. I'm gonna add a lot more NPCs, more details to the dungeon and to hub. A skill system. Of course, the skill system is the most time-consuming thing that I'm gonna take, because not only I need to design the skill tree or the skill system itself, I need to make a way so that the player can learn as many skills as it wants. Right now, I only have 5 on the bar, but you can change the skills from any slot to any other slot. That's my next step. A small thumbnail experience system. Right now, I'm not really doing anything. All this counts on the stats. And I think that's it. I think that's all of what I've done with the dungeon and the game, and what are my plans for the future. Please tell me what you think in the comments. What can I add? What can I remove or change? Especially with the dungeon. That's what I'm struggling the most. I'm not struggling, but it's just that for the future, it's not gonna be really sustainable the way I wanna scale the game. Yeah, I think that's it. Please comment, subscribe, like, and if you want also any advice or any code that you wanna look for this game, how I made something, I can make a little video. If somebody wants, because the information in the dungeon generators area for Godot is pretty lacking. So, I had to figure a lot of stuff out myself. So yeah, tell me what you think, and see you in the next update.